It's gonna be good, it's gonna be great, it's gonna be better, I can't wait. Making my move, live for the day, sing like a bird, fly like a plane. Come spill with me, Jenny D.
Still with me, Jenny D podcast. It's March. It's Women in Business. It's Women's International Day that's coming up. I have my wonder sponsors. I have Kelly Moore from CFS Bank. Thank you, Kelly. And I also have Dion Malish, which is the standard gold. I think it's Reality One Gold Standard. Yes. Thank you so much, Dion. So I am just so excited. Jackie and I have been talking for, a couple weeks now. And I want her to introduce herself to you all so you know who she is. But we met a couple of times and I've always seen her name or maybe LinkedIn or something. And I was like, she's got such a beautiful smile. She's very engaging. Like you want to talk to Jackie. So Jackie, tell us a little bit about you and your title and what you do.
Yeah. So I'm Jackie Slaugenhaupt, and I usually introduce myself as the president and co-founder of Teetotal Initiative.
Right.
And that is a nonprofit that we started back in 2023. So It hasn't been that long, about 2.5 years here in Pittsburgh. And we support the sober and recovery community. And so our mission is around helping individuals to sustain sobriety.
Yes.
And it sounds really simple. But as I'm someone that's in recovery from alcohol use disorder.
Okay.
And so it was really important to me when I was kind of going through the process of getting treatment, there was a lot of support for people when you're in crisis, like whenever you're at the very beginning. But then once you progress and, you kind of have some, skills under your belt, there's nothing. They're just like, good luck. Here you go. Go to a meeting, continue with your life, and just and so that was the real gap for me, and also kept me, kept me relapsing for a long time because I needed social connection.
Right.
I needed it to be a little more like constructed, there just wasn't a easy means for me to go about doing it. So long story short, we founded Teetotal Initiative in 2023 to bridge that gap. There's nothing else like this in the country. There's a couple of other organizations that do kind of some similar things, but what we do is we put on free events, activities, and classes. So we do things. We might go kayaking. We have cooking classes. We do holistic programming.
I love that.
Yeah, we have like yoga, sound healing. We've got an online book club.
I just had somebody on about sound healing.
Yeah.
Jackie, I'm sorry. Let me take us back a little bit. So when you say that you're alcohol,
yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about like how, what alcohol did for you, or, was it something that, happened, or you just felt like, oh my gosh, it just became too much?
Yeah. I'm happy.
If you want to share.
I'm happy to share my story. And I talk a lot too about kind of like normalizing. There are a lot of people that don't partake in drinking. But the culture around us and in society kind of focuses a lot on alcohol.
Oh, yeah.
And so, in my 20s and 30s, I was very social, really enjoyed hanging out with my friend group. We'd go out for drinks, after shows or just throughout the week, just kind of very much normal, socializing.
Right.
And then like over time, I would, I started to notice that I drank every day, right?
Right.
And then I started noticing a little that I maybe would black out here and there. And so it kind of got to the point where something happened at a New Year's Eve party. And I think I said something to a friend that I probably wouldn't say if I was sober.
Been there, done that.
And then a couple of days later, they approached me and said, hey, you might want to go check this out and see if there's an issue. So I went to see like a therapist. And of course, she suggested that I cut out drinking for a couple of weeks. And I was shocked to find that I could not do it.
Like cold turkey. I mean, that's a lot to ask.
Yeah.
If you are used to drinking every day. And sometimes, and I'm not saying this for your story, but sometimes when I find out with some of my guests, is that drinking makes them more social.
Yeah.
When they're not drinking, they're not the same person. And I actually had a man on and a woman on that had two different stories, but they said that they didn't feel like they were fun.
That it's 100% true. I
thought
felt like
that
I
was
was more
bizarre.
social,
Yes.
more fun. I felt like it was a reward. Like, so I'm one of those people that packs my schedule, right?
Yes.
I've always got things to do. I've, got stuff during work, and then I have things after work, and then I probably have things after that.
No downtime.
And it was kind of the kind of juice that kind of kept me going.
Right.
Was I could just go have a drink everywhere that I went.
Right.
And so not only did it kind of make me feel like I was more fun and more sociable, it kind of gave me some like energy or like enthusiasm to kind of
Yes.
keep going.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's the hard part too, is like, so it wasn't like you grew up like, oh my gosh, I just want to drink. It's sometimes the one guy I would talk to, his came from college.
Yeah.
The drinking was just so big, in college that he just was like, I can't function without drinking.
Yeah.
So did yours come in your 20s that just for like a social thing with your girlfriends, and all of a sudden it was like, okay, every day I need to have a drink?
Yeah. In fact, I didn't really start drinking till I was 21. So I didn't even like drink in high school. And
I didn't either.
yeah. And so it just started again. I was being kind of a social thing. And now early on, it was definitely not something that I did every day, but just
Right.
it just honestly just became a habit. But the habit turned into over time, a dependency.
Yes.
And so that's what you kind of don't see happen.
Right.
I was shocked that I couldn't stop when that therapist asked me to go for, I could only go for a couple of days because I just kind of gave in and I didn't understand it. I was
Did
like,
you have like the shakes or anything like that?
Not
Because your body was
not at first.
Yeah.
But what happened, like when I started down this path of trying to cut back, it actually got a lot worse. So what happened was I would, I'd spend some time being like, I'm not going to kind of white knuckle it. Right.
Yeah.
And then something like I would see my friends still out drinking. That was probably the hardest part too, because I had these experiences where I was like, okay, well, I'm just going to stay home then, because if I'm not drinking, I'm not going to go out. I'm not going to do things.
Right.
And so I started, you know what FOMO is, Jenny?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Fear of missing out.
Yes,
right?
I get that.
So I would see,
and it's all over social media.
it was like, it was
it's not
Facebook was
like-
just kind of coming out. It was really big. So long story short, so what happened is it kind of like that at that moment, is when kind of like the addiction kind of really turned on, where like once I started drinking, like on the weekends, I would just binge drink the whole weekend.
Right.
And then like over time, it just got worse and worse, where they call it a mental obsession, where you're constantly thinking about it. You're constantly, being like, I'm not going to do it tomorrow, or I'm going to wait till this, or I need to it becomes this obsession.
Weekend, yeah.
And so I'll just be honest, over time, and plus kind of this life stressors that you used to be able to rely on to like, have a
Ease
drink
the
kind of
pain,
relieves
yes.
this, or, you need a drink after a tough week.
Right.
I ended up needing to go to treatment several times. And so that put me kind of in this cycle for like 8 years. So,
but you recognized it, Jackie.
Mhm.
Do you know what I mean? Like you at least put yourself in there. Nobody forced you.
No one
You know?
forced me, but, I would say people who are in this kind of situation, you need to like want to quit for yourself.
Mhm.
I definitely wanted to quit for that cute guy that told me that he thought maybe I needed to go see a therapist.
Right.
And that did not work. So it took me a
Mhm.
while to get to a point where I wanted to quit for myself, not to please someone else.
Right.
But I gotta say, it was a very lonely experience. And it was very isolating. It really drastically changed kind of my social life, right? So not only was I trying to cut back and didn't know how to still be social without a drink in my hand,
Right.
it was also everywhere that I went, temptation was there.
Yes, the temptation's everywhere.
And so like at that point, that's when they started like putting like, drinks in like at the movie theater and,
Oh
at
my
Starbucks. And so, and that was really the hardest part. And that, cause I felt so left out and like sad, and I was just like, and that just fueled, it's funny to say, but it kept me drinking because I would get sad and upset. And what did I do? I
Right.
needed a glass of wine to interact with those kind of feelings and
Right.
emotions. So
It was hard. Like it's hard to for me to even say that to you because I wasn't in your shoes. But yes, when you're, I do feel like when I'm depressed or something, I'm like, oh, I need a glass of wine or something just to chill me out.
yeah.
Society has made drinking, like I was just talking to somebody about this, like the commercials and stuff about drinking, but and smoking. Like they talk about all that stuff, but then they don't talk about like, it's like poisoning your body. Like as I
Yeah.
got older now, I'm like, oh, I'm okay.
Well,
I
and
don't need to drink.
the thing is
Yeah.
is too is like they don't they there's always the tagline about please drink responsibly at the
Right.
bottom, but you don't know that what's happening in your internal systems, or like you have a
Yes.
family history of this. I never thought I would be the person. I do have a history of addiction in my family, but I always thought that I never thought as a woman. I didn't know any, like none of my aunts
Yes.
or like, female family members had this issue. I just like, oh, this isn't going
It
to
could have been
happen to
something
me.
different than that,
Yeah. But what happens is your body's chemistry changes, the way
Mm.
that your brain reacts to it and changes. And I'm not going to give a science lesson here today by any means,
I'm like, come on.
but it is, has to do with like dopamine, and the dopamine that you're getting from, drinking that gives
Right.
you that lift, gives you that little bit. And so after a while, when you use alcohol or or any substance or
Substance, yeah.
anything like that, even like food and whatnot,
Right.
your brain gets used to it and doesn't know how to create its own dopamine, or doesn't know how to create those feel good chemicals over time.
Oh, okay.
And so your brain gets depleted from that. Again, not a scientist,
No, but that
but
makes a lot of sense.
but then you're like, well, what do I replace it with? You have to replace that reward system, and kind of rebuild those structures and neural pathways. And it takes time and energy and effort.
Right.
And so that's where teetotal comes in. I talked a lot about, like, this was like 7 to 8 years of my life. I'm still going to work. I'm still trying, managing. I'm living. It's like and I did have some instances where I did get a DUI at one point.
Mhm.
Things like this started to happen, but it was after I realized that I had a problem, and then that was the thing that I again couldn't stop. So after going to treatment and kind of getting back to square zero, because I couldn't figure out what my problem was. There are support groups and things that are out there, and people will tell you, go to this meeting, or go
Right.
do this, or go to yoga, or do that. I'm trying all the things, right? And
Right.
so nothing's kind of really resonating with me. And at kind of again after this critical point, I was like, Jackie, you have got to figure out what your problem is, not what everyone else tells you that your problem is.
Right.
Like, what really is it? And I was like, I miss my friends. I miss going out. I miss my social group. I miss having something to look forward to. And it seemed really silly when I, like,
No,
a
that makes
little
a lot of sense though, Jackie.
superficial.
Yeah.
It seemed superficial, but had become a really big gap in my life that I had before and
Right.
didn't have anymore. And especially for people who, again, where alcohol is something that, that they're using, it's a big gap. And it's something that's not actively addressed when you go to therapy or go
Right.
to, see a medical professional or things like that. And so basically, I realized, I was like, you know what? I was like, if I really want to get past this, I'm gonna have to create something for myself. I'm gonna have to like figure out, be like, okay, I'm gonna do sober yoga events. I don't know how, but I'm gonna go figure it out. I'm gonna have
Right.
to be that person that starts going out and doing this, because there might be little pockets of like activities, but they're not consistent. And and so I had this thought, and so was having dinner with my friend Scott, my co-founder, and this is like before the holidays, and I had just gotten home from going to treatment again, right?
Right.
And I was like, hey, I want to tell you about this idea that I have. I want to talk, and you're talking about something.
Yes.
I think it's important. I think I'm going to do this. And he was like, oh my gosh, I've had the same idea forever. He's like, let's partner together.
Oh my gosh.
And so that was the thing, is that amongst like the sober recovery community, we all have talked. Every time you're in like a support group or you talk to a
Right.
friend, people are like, okay, great. I am game for changing. It's an overhaul of your lifestyle whenever you move into like a recovery sober space.
Right.
Right. and you're basically changing the way that your whole lifestyle about how you approach things and the things that you do.
Like
And
a mindset almost. Like,
it's 100% a
yeah.
mindset, and kind of learning again how to be social
Right.
without relying on a substance or like being fun or this or
Oh,
that, right?
yeah, it's not that it's the same thing, but I remember like there were times where, yeah, I didn't like not remembering or,
Yeah.
the feeling of waking up the next day and just having a complete headache and having days to recover. I'm thinking, why am I doing this? Like, how is this fun or how is this
Yeah.
helping me, be social? And it was almost like, and it's true, like the people you hang out with, if they can't hang out with you without drinking with you, then they're not really your friends,
Yeah.
you
And
know?
that was a lesson that was really hard for me to learn. I
Yeah.
was very surprised and very hurt by
Like,
by
Jackie,
realizing
just
that.
have one. You'll be fine. Just have one.
Yeah.
No.
So, and it was like, honestly, in some cases, it was definitely like they just did things and then they just stopped
Didn't tell
inviting.
you.
They
Yeah.
stopped inviting me, and I would see it on Facebook.
Yeah.
And I think that was probably the most hurtful, hardest thing that I'm making good choices. I'm taking, one of these people was in that group and like that,
Yeah.
suggested that maybe I needed to go get some outside support. And it was just like, wow. I really,
I don't think they knew how to help. You
and
know what I mean?
and that's kind of what it
Because they
is.
thought, oh my
People,
God, we'll be drinking in front of her. We don't want to tempt her. I don't want to, I don't want her to
Mhm,
relapse. I think that
yeah,
that's like probably but it's by saying, "Hey, Jackie, listen, we're going out to dinner. Um, you know, do you want to come? Like, there people are going to be drinking. Like, I
yeah,
should have at least
yeah.
asked you.
It was really
It's your
hard.
choice,
It was
yeah.
like going through a really bad breakup.
Right. Oh my
Yeah,
God, I totally understand
yeah,
that. Yeah,
and
you
honestly,
lose friends that way too. But
it was, yeah, it was extremely challenging. So I had to, and of course I did have friends that supported me and people that wanted
right,
me to, but it was a tough transition because for ever since I would like turn 20, 21 years
yeah,
old, it's like the social lubricant that's out there, right?
yes,
So I was like, okay, well then we're going to create something else. And
yeah.
so Teetotal Initiative is designed to, and it's the one, again, like I said, one of the
The only
only
ones.
nonprofits in the country, so that provides free events. We provide a service. Like when we
Right,
started, we wanted to be a service to the community rather than like a mocktail club or something like that.
right.
And so we work with funders and get donations and sponsorships and all of those kinds of different things to support our events. The first year we did 6 events, and we did them some of them in partnership with Contemporary Craft, which is a wonderful museum, craft and design museum here in Pittsburgh.
Oh my gosh, I'd never even heard of
They're
it.
fantastic, and
What's it
so
called?
it's
Contemporary
called Contemporary Craft,
craft.
and it's in Lawrenceville.
Oh, okay. I've
Yeah,
been to Lawrenceville.
yeah, and so we started doing social media really early on to kind of build that base as we were getting our 501(c)(3) and getting our paperwork and all of that.
Wait, take me back. Why did you come up with that name? Teetotal.
So
Because
Teetotal,
I'm like, okay, because it's spell it for us.
it's Teetotal.
Yes,
And
okay.
so teetotaler is an old school term for like someone who doesn't drink. Like turn of the
Oh,
century, like in like the early 1900s, people who were teetotalers or
oh,
someone who was like abstinent. And so we liked kind of it was a little more cheeky than outright saying sobriety or recovery in the
right,
name, and we liked initiative to going along with it, but it kind of subtly implies that we're people that don't partake, right?
right.
But will also kind of be, honestly, we've become a very kind of reduce that stigma because we're so public and so open about what it is that we
Right.
do,
Yes.
that's like, oh hey, we're just for people who decide not to partake or want to come to our events. And I think it's important to point out that while our mission is around helping people in sobriety, in recovery, we're open to anyone. We don't ask people to align to a certain belief system. Maybe you're questioning your relationship with drugs or alcohol. Maybe you just prefer, maybe you have a family history. You prefer to come to something that doesn't focus on that. And
Right.
honestly, like the younger generations, younger than me,
Yeah.
tend to are a lot they are less likely to to drink and kind of have that be the focus. So we intentionally want to be like inclusive of that. We don't put these limits on. In fact, one of the things that's very different about what we do versus like going to a support group, we people don't have to get up at the end of our events and talk about their feelings,
Right.
which
Yes.
which I really like.
Yeah. I was
Um,
gonna say, yeah, it was
and
hard for
it's
you,
but at
right?
the same time, you walk into, again, like imagine like one of our cooking classes. We often have those at Cohatch on the south side, again here in
Oh
Pittsburgh.
yeah,
Yeah.
catch.
And so you walk into that room and maybe you're there by yourself and you don't know anyone else, but you know that you have something in common with everyone there.
Right.
And you don't have there's no awkward questions, like similar to like being in a restaurant. Oh, what are you gonna? Do you want anything to drink?
I
Do you want
know. And
this?
that's the first thing.
Or you have waiters pressuring
Yes,
you?
think about that. It's the
Hmm.
first thing they ask you. What do you want to drink?
Yeah,
Water? What do you want any alcohol? Like it's almost because alcohol is what is it? When a bar or restaurant, that's where they get the most money from.
that's where they make the most money.
Yes.
So, as someone who was a server before, I totally understand that,
Right.
right? And I get it. But over the last 5 years, especially, we've been very lucky, kind of with the timing, because there are a lot more options for non-alcoholic beverages,
Right.
like elevated a little bit more than maybe some fruit juice and some sparkling soda, which I still
Yes.
love.
Me
But
too.
there are a lot more people are paying a lot more attention to the non-alcoholic beverage industry. In fact, we have the oldest non-alcoholic bottle shop in the country, right here in Pittsburgh, in Garfield, like East
What?
Garfield, Lawrenceville area. Yeah, it's called the Open Road. And Mel, their owner, is fantastic. And they just have walls of non alcoholic wine and beers and beverages, more than you could possibly imagine. And they have just gotten so popular because
You
people,
can drink that,
my,
and
my
you don't have
goal.
to tell people like why you're not drinking because they think you're drinking anyway.
I mean, and when I bring non-alcoholic beverages to like my little social events, so I sing in a choir, and choir people, we have a game day once a month, so we all get together and play games, and I'll
Aw.
just bring whatever I want to drink along with it, and not that and people just bring what they want, and a lot of times when you put both options in front of someone, if there's they'll choose the non-alcoholic option. If you only put alcoholic options in front of someone, people feel they feel compelled. They
Right.
feel like they have to drink. So we Scott and I do some like lunch and learns and like workplace education
Right.
on like recovery inclusion in the workplace. It'd be like, hey, have a happy hour, make it balanced. So one of the things that I
Right.
think about is just normalizing the experience of
Yeah.
going from being like, yes, I personally have an addiction which is classified as a disability under the Americans with Disabilities Act. So if you have had an addiction, even if you're in like remission or in recovery, you're still considered to be a disabled person.
Okay.
And so, but at the same time, it's just like, again, normalizing the fact that some people drink and some people don't.
Right. And why is that? Oh my God. You even think about it when it's like, oh, you have a problem or it's not normal that you're not drinking. It
Right.
has like society, and I do think it's changing a lot now. Like you
It
said, the
is.
mocktails and everything, I've been seeing a lot more than that.
Yeah.
But it's true. Like when you work somewhere and you all go out for happy hour and you're at the bar and you order like soda water with, whatever.
Mhm.
And people are like, why should you drink soda? Like, it's
Yeah.
almost like, why are you drinking that alcohol? Aren't you going to be
Right.
driving in your car, or aren't, like just stupid stuff
It's
like that.
it's silly
So
when you think about it that way.
yes,
Yeah.
it's like a double-edged sword because
Yeah.
you're saying to someone,
And
why aren't you drinking? Well,
and
why are you drinking?
I'm not saying that people shouldn't drink. That's
Right.
not what I'm saying at all.
Right.
It's just that it's the most recent Gallup poll, I believe, is it said 42% of people just do not drink. That is a really high number.
Wow, I didn't know.
Yes.
Okay, 42%.
42%. Yeah.
Wow.
So it is so it's a great time for what it is that we're doing. And I was trying to say earlier, we've grown exponentially. The first year we had six events. Scott and I are putting our own money in, doing this partnership with
Yeah.
Contemporary Craft. In 2025, we did 75
What?
events. So anyway, this month in
I was gonna say,
February,
how many do a month?
so it grew from doing one event every 2 to 3 months at the very beginning. So now we regularly have 4 or 5 events. Some are in person in Allegheny County. Some are virtual. Like I said, we have a book club. We do virtual cooking classes too,
Oh my
where we'll actually, if
gosh.
someone is in need, we'll send them like an Instacart gift card. So
Yeah.
they can go and purchase, because we're very also mindful of people maybe limited with financial resources when they're when they're coming into
Like
this
they might not have a
space.
car, they can't get places.
Right.
Yeah.
There's a lot of barriers there. So it's really important to us that that financial isn't a barrier.
Right.
But so there, and then we also I'm grateful to funding that we've received from Stoughton Farm Foundation. Again, a wonderful mental health
Oh.
and substance use foundation here in Pittsburgh. Um,
What is it called again?
it's called Staunton Farm Foundation.
Staunton.
Mm-hmm. Staunton for anyone that wants to go look it up.
Oh my gosh.
And so they really were critical in our first couple of years of helping us get some initial funding. And then in 2025, we received a capacity grant to do in-person events in the surrounding counties outside of Allegheny County, which is where Pittsburgh is,
Right.
to Butler, Beaver, Washington, Westmoreland, and Fayette. Like, we are so excited about the events we're doing with Fayette, which is in the Laurel Highlands. We have so many wonderful things coming up.
What county are you in?
So I live downtown Pittsburgh.
So you're Allegheny.
I'm Allegheny.
Yes. Okay. Because I'm Washington County.
Yeah.
So here's my question for you, Jackie. Like, how did they find you? Like, how did they even know that you existed?
That's a really great question. We are definitely word of mouth. It's again, my co-founder Scott put a lot of effort and energy into building up our social media presence early
Your website
on.
looks great.
Thanks.
Looks great.
And again, it's just we continue to grow and refine. But a lot of it is word of mouth because we have our events on Eventbrite.
Okay.
But we don't publicly advertise our events because
Yeah,
they're
I get it.
free. So,
Right.
it's unfortunate that some people might just come, for the food and the activity, and support. So and even then, every 99% of our events fill up to capacity, and then we usually have a wait list.
Oh,
So,
wow.
so imagine like a sound healing class, like we have 25 spots.
Right.
And so those spots fill up. We put out RSVPs like a week in advance, and then they fill up within a couple of days. And usually there's a wait list.
Wow.
And at the end, people will drop out and move and come and different.
Right.
Sometimes they open up and things like that. But we have those like 4 to 6 events per month. Plus, we have the past years we've had a big comedy show with like a sober comedy showcase of people. And we brought in a headliner from Chicago the last 2 years. And that event can fill up to like 200 people.
Oh my gosh.
And we also have had what's called the Fresh Air Art and Recovery Festival in September for the last couple of years.
Fresh Air. So what does that mean?
So Fresh Air means art and recovery. And so it's just the acronym. So we have people from the southwestern
Art
PA
and recovery. Oh my
and
gosh.
from
I'm
other.
learning so much from you. I'm like,
I
my
could talk
gosh.
forever about
But
this, Jenny.
but here's what what do you
And I
think?
get so excited
I
too,
know.
right? Because
You're passionate.
you have people that, again, men, women, background, 18,
I was
75,
gonna say, how old
all
are they?
across, because there's such a need for what we're
Is
doing.
there more men or more women? Or is it
There's
half and half?
There's typically more women. Women are maybe a little bit more open to like going to like different kinds of events and looking. Right. Women are a little bit more social, where they go and actively look for opportunities.
Right.
But it again continues to kind of change and shift.
But think about all the friendships you have made.
Yeah. So many.
Just when you thought, like, in the beginning, when you were saying, like, you feel like you lose that friend group that, you thought that was your life. That was like, what do you mean? I can't function without then you meet these new people. Like, I've never met
so
Jackie.
Grateful.
Now I know Jackie and what she does. Like that to me, my heart is full when I hear these stories that are like, oh my gosh, you came from something that was like, how do I change my life? How do I
Mhm.
become not a different person, but how do I change my lifestyle?
Well, I really, I used to be really resentful about everything that I went through, about going to treatment and being really lonely and kind of miserable as a
Hmm.
sober person for all those earlier years. Couldn't find my place. I didn't feel like myself. I was like, is this all there is out there for me now?
Right.
Like, this happened to me. And now, I mean, I couldn't have this organization. I couldn't have Teetotal Initiative and have my co-founder and have all this community around me if I hadn't have gone through those things. It's never what I would have expected for myself.
Right.
I never planned to be someone who's kind of an advocate for sobriety and recovery in a
Right.
million years.
But thank God, because you started something and you saw there was a need. There were men and women
Yeah.
out there that were like starving for some activities that they were with like-minded people that said, you know what, let's do these things together and not
Yeah.
have alcohol or drugs or anything, any kind of addiction
Yeah.
that is going to get us to go backwards.
Yeah.
We see each
And
other,
it's
we support each other,
And
you
what
know?
what we're doing is like it's considered innovative. It's such a simple idea. It's not even a new idea. People have been hosting like sober hikes and get-togethers and things like
Right.
that for as long as people have been trying to get sober.
Yeah.
But we kind of build that. I have to give some props again to my co-founder Scott because
Yeah.
he is a professional event manager in a past life, and so he
Oh.
is now our executive director and full-time paid executive director, um, and is the creative half of putting on our events and the quality of events that we have. There's this past perception of like sober events of being like, again, like, in a basement somewhere with some cold pizza and like a
Yeah.
red Solo cup.
Right.
No one wants to go to that.
No.
No one really wants that life, especially
Mm-mm.
when you feel like maybe your life before was a little more vibrant. And
Right.
so it's building and putting that it's quality. And again, for us, when I go and talk to funders, it's relapse prevention. It's like there's
Yes.
this
Relapse
relapse prevention, or
prevention.
they call it return to use, right? So as someone who's in recovery, so I've been I started back in 2024 attempting to get sober. I feel like I've had this continuous sobriety since 2022. Um and so now I'm at like 3.5 years, something like that. Thank you. Thank you.
Yay! That's
And I couldn't have
wonderful.
done it without Teetotal Initiative, without the community. It gave me a lot of purpose, right? It
You
gave me that
needed them as
direction.
much as they needed you. And
100%.
you don't even like that's why I'm like
Yeah.
start something. If you feel like there's a need. I talked to another woman who there was never like she had leukemia at 19 years old and she could not find people her age that have gone through cancer. It
Yeah.
was either, the younger or it was older. And
Yeah.
so she started her own little group, I
That's
mean,
the thing. If it doesn't exist and it
start it.
speaks to you strongly and there's a gap, um, go for it.
Right.
Like it's not
Would you
just
ever
me.
thought it would be like 75 events?
No, I mean, not really. It's
Mm.
really evolved past. If it were still just me, and not for my co-founder, it would just kind
Yeah.
of be. I don't know what it would look like. It would probably just still be yoga once a week somewhere at a
Right.
YM, which is fine. But I think the experience that Scott and I had after getting, going through treatment and doing that, where they tell you to go out and change they say people, places, and things. Go change your people, places, and things. And so for me, I was like, well, I really like yoga. I'll have a yoga tribe. I'll find people that I connect with.
Right.
But that didn't actually happen in reality when I went to class. I'd walk into class, I might say hi to somebody, but I didn't know if the person next to me had any inkling of being sober in recovery, make
Right.
that connection. And then I would just kind of walk back out of class. Like it didn't happen naturally like
No,
that.
you're not going to authentically just be like, "Hey, do you want to get together?" Like I'm
Right. It was so
trying to
much,
be
it was
sober.
work. It
Yeah.
was like this additional burden of work that was put on me as a person to not only stay sober and keep up with like all the mental health aspects of it, but then now I have to go like find all my people and figure out things to do. So I think when I was talking about
How many people would you say are like not members, but belong to Teetotal?
Yeah, so we're not a membership model, and it's open, but we estimate that we serve about 2,500 people per year now,
Wow.
and it'll just keep growing. Again, if the funding stays up, there, and we have funding to support
That's
operations, it will just keep growing.
amazing.
We get requests on a weekly basis from people in other cities that hear about us, like Albuquerque or LA or Seattle or wherever. People reach out to us when they hear about us. And again, it's kind of a lot of social media and word of mouth. We have our website. We
Right.
proactively, do some reach outs and things like that. But there's a need, there's a
There's a
gap.
need,
It
yeah.
was something that people talked about for a really long time. And Scott and I we just decided to do something about it.
Mhm.
And so it fits in with like the rest of like what we call like the recovery ecosystem, right?
Right.
Because it was really what we do is support people on like I call it kind of a like a lifelong continuum. Okay.
Right.
Because even though I have 3.5 years in the right belt, it doesn't mean that I don't have bouts of anxiety. It doesn't
Right.
mean that I don't have personal loss and grief in my life.
Right.
It like things happen that you have as as any person, but especially as a sober person, you have to really work hard to maintain kind of your emotional balance and well-being. Otherwise, it's really easy to go back to what you know before to solve for difficult feelings, right?
Yes, I get it. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think that's kind of like that's another reason why we're here. And we're looking to also partner with, we are starting some partnerships. I can't quite talk about those yet,
Yeah.
because they're not official, with some other organizations that just provide like, it's
Yeah.
like, well, maybe it's not as much about wanting to reach for, a drink, an alcoholic drink, but people still need that support, whether it's like, physical movement, whether it's like emotional balance,
Right.
whether it is, some people, job loss. Maybe it's like, make
Right.
connecting people to someone who can help with
Help with a
workforce.
job.
Like
Yes.
there's so many connections, and we are kind of the container for that.
I love that.
Yeah.
I mean, and we were talking about this before we were on air, but now you also sing in a choir.
Oh my gosh, I know.
Tell us a little bit about that before we.
Yeah, I'll talk a little bit. I think one of the things that I personally I love doing, and it's kind of circles way back to your focus of health and wellness and March and women in business.
Yes.
I'll just tie it up together.
And trying to find an outlet that makes you feel good,
Yeah.
you know?
So the other thing that I do is I sing in a choir, and I have sung in a choir. I sang in high school. I sang in college. I prefer singing in a choir rather than like as an individual. But I sing in a choir for my own mental health, well being, joy, appreciation, giving back to the
Yes.
community. Right.
I
And
love
one
the feeling when you sing and just I don't
it's
know.
it's like it's
There's
kind of
something about it.
indescribable to
Mhm.
me. I will never forget when I was singing with the Charlotte Symphony for the first time, and again in one of those big choirs that's on stage with the orchestra,
Yes.
and we were singing this amazing piece by Bach, like one of his most famous pieces, and the thrill that I got of
Yes.
being on stage with a full orchestra and an audience of 2,000
Oh,
people, I cried. It was just that joyful, like tears of
yes.
joy. And so doing things for your own well-being is so
Mhm.
important. So I sing, but I also like I am I I see gaps, and I like to work to fill them. That really brings me so much joy too, about like
Right.
bringing people together. Like, oh, there's something that there's a need for this. There's a
Right.
need for this, like, sober event thing. There's a need for bringing, all the choir leadership together to talk about how we
Yes.
can collaborate. um and there's just I enjoy that so much, and that's one of the things that I've started doing for some nonprofit consulting work, is like,
Nice.
oh, I can help with this. I can help make this organization stronger.
Yes.
And so I get really kind of passionate about all of that.
You're
And
doing so many amazing things.
thanks.
And
Thank you, Jenny.
we really when we connected on the choir, because I love to sing myself and I have not been in a choir in so long. Bethel Park, they had a choir and it was adults and it was years ago. Then I did community theater years ago, and I kind of like distanced that because I got so busy with my life. And now I'm like, I'm so envious that you're singing because singing brought so much joy
I
to
know
me.
plenty of choirs that you can join.
Oh, I don't know if the voice needs a little bit of it's like riding a bike, right? Yeah, right.
I can hook you up, Jenny.
Oh, we're going to karaoke, okay? And I know she's going to be singing her lungs out. And I'll be like, I'll be your backup singer.
That sounds great. That sounds great.
But I mean, I just feel like, Jackie, I can just tell the passion like in your eyes. And I don't know if you give yourself enough credit for what you do and what you and your partner have come up with, because this is just a community of people that are saying, you know what, we got this. And we're all in this together, and we're not alone. And I think that was my biggest thing about starting this whole podcast, about spilling it, because people have so many different stories and so many different walks of life that they came from. And it's up to you if you want to make that change, but you can't do it on your own.
No.
You do need that support system. You do need the community, your friends, your family, or somebody.
And also just being willing to talk about it. Again, like when we started Teetotal Initiative, I didn't really talk about myself as like a sober person before. I wasn't like out, as they say, right? But it just came such as a natural extension. And now it's just so, I talk about it all the time.
Yeah.
And it's just so easy it wasn't always easy,
Right.
but there's definitely something about having community, knowing that you're not alone in this, in anything that you might be going through. And even for someone who maybe doesn't like to talk about their feelings all the time, I'm like, I can handle it.
Yeah.
I've learned that lesson. I was like, no, it's much better whenever you talk.
It is so true.
Yeah.
Like holding
And
things
spill.
in. Yeah. Like you got to spill it.
You got to spill it out.
Because, it will like eat you up inside if you feel that you're like, not like, I used to think of that imposter syndrome. Like, you don't think that like, I'm like, oh, I'm not doing any good, or I'm not, I'm not an influencer. Somebody said that, I was like, I'm not an influencer, but it was like, okay, wait a second. Like we have a need and we have a job to do, and you're out to help people because you needed that support and help, and I'm here to broadcast, so people out there listening. So if somebody right now is listening to this podcast episode and they're like, wow, I know somebody, or how would they get a hold of you?
Yeah. So our website is www.teetotal, teetotal.org.
Okay.
And we're also on Instagram and Facebook. And I'm also on Instagram and Facebook. If you have my name and last name out there, I am the only Slaugenhaupt, the only Jackie Slaugenhaupt.
I wasn't about to see your last name. I mispronounced so many words. I said,
and then so you can contact us, message us too. I respond to all of the individual messages. Love hearing from people, and I do. Every time I kind of talk about what it is that we're doing, or we put something out there, I get people who say, I need this for me. But a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, my brother could use this, my neighbor, my friend, my aunt, whomever it is, because people recognize that this piece is so critical, but it's not talked about that much.
Right. And it's a safe place.
Yes.
You're surrounded by people that want to support you, that have been in your shoes, because it's hard to be around people that have not been through what you've been through, and they don't know, what the addiction was like and what it, has done to you. And to come out of that, Jackie, and to see what you're doing now. And she was one of the nominees in the Pillar, the Brave Women Project Pillar Award. So I'm just so excited that you came today and you shared your story on Spill With Me.
I'm so happy to be here. This is lovely. It's been really great.
I love it. Now, I'm going to have all the information underneath, so if you need to get in contact with Teetotal Initiative, but I thank you so much, Jackie.
Thank you so much, Jenny. This is so much fun.
Thank you, honey. This was another episode of Spill With Me, Jenny D. Take care.
Come spill with me. Come spill with me.